I need you to turn around. Hands behind your back, she said, flat, official. But her voice had thinned just slightly, not a tremble, a shift. He didn't move. She reached out, hand sliding along the edge of his forearm. The hoodie didn't hide the heat of his skin or the dry scrape of his pulse beneath it. For a second, her fingers rested there, too long to be procedural. Still, he didn't resist. Just watched her. Quiet, sharp. There was something sacred in the sound of steel hitting steel. Jack Brenner exhaled sharply as the final rep shook through his body. The barbell landed with a satisfying clank on the squat rack's hooks. He stood still for a moment, letting the burns settle deep in his legs, then peeled the soaked hoodie from his shoulders. Underneath, his muscles swelled, etched and angular, a frame forged by discipline and repetition. The gym was mostly dark now. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with tired voltage. A bored teenager behind the desk scrolled through his phone, occasionally glancing toward the door, eager to lock up. Jack wasn't looking at him. He was locked on the mirror. He didn't smile at what he saw, didn't flex. He just observed, like an engineer examining a structure for faults. Triceps firm, chest defined, no water retention. Good. Shoulders solid, jawline sharper than last month. Good. His body was a map, and tonight it showed no signs of decay. But Jack didn't trust ease. Perfection, he knew, was a moving target, so he scanned himself like a problem waiting to happen. This was how he kept control, by never assuming he had it. He wiped down the bench with a sanitizing towel, zipped his hoodie halfway up, and gave the place one final look before heading out into the night. Outside, the air sliced cold through his clothes. Late winter in Illinois, gray, silent, and full of teeth. He liked it. It reminded him the world didn't owe him warmth. The charger chirped once as he unlocked it. Jet black, waxed weakly, spotless. He slid into the driver's seat, tossed his shaker bottle in the passenger footwell, and started the engine. A familiar rumble, the kind of sound that said, "I'm here, and I'm not folding." Fleetwood Mac's The Chain filled the cabin at low volume. Jack didn't believe in randomness. Every song on the playlist had been selected to sync with his workouts, his drives, his thoughts. Music was another form of discipline. He took the back roads home, always. No lights, no late-night traffic, no kids on scooters trying to race the wrong kind of man. Just long, empty pavement and rows of dark storefronts. Jack rolled down the window halfway. The cold bit at his jawline. He let it. Pain was honest. As he drove, he loosened his grip on the wheel just enough to feel the ridges in the leather. 10 and 2. Always. His mind drifted as he sipped what remained in the shaker. The liquid was lukewarm now, chalky with creatine, tart with the electrolytes he added. Disgusting, really, but effective. Like most things that worked, discipline was lonely, but it worked. He checked the rear view without thinking. Habit. Nothing behind him but dark road. And then, flash. A bloom of red and blue lit the cabin like a scene from some bad procedural. Jack blinked. The light stayed. Another flash. Then the blip of a siren. One short burst, commanding. He didn't tense. He didn't need to. His body had already memorized this dance. He eased off the gas, flicked on his blinker, and pulled to the shoulder with the kind of mechanical calm you learn the third or fourth time someone assumes you're dangerous. The engine idled. His eyes stayed forward. He didn't reach for his wallet yet. That could wait. He stared at the windshield like it was a screen showing someone else's story. But the grip on the wheel told the truth. This wasn't someone else's story. It was his again. And this time, something about it felt different. The night was dead quiet, except for the low tick-tick-tick of his engine and the high crackle of the cruiser door opening behind him. Jack didn't move, not out of fear. He just knew better. Movement invited interpretation. Interpretation got people hurt. Footsteps approached, measured, not rushed, not hesitant, just trained. A flashlight cut through the darkness, arcing once across the back of his car, pausing on the license plate, then sweeping across the side mirror to bounce against the glass beside his face. Jack stared ahead, eyes fixed on nothing, waiting for the knock. 2 taps. Standard issue. He rolled the window halfway down slowly. Cool air rushed in. A woman's voice, crisp and calm, spoke. "Evening, sir. License and registration, please." Jack reached for the glove box. No sudden moves. Wrist slow, elbow tight, paperwork in hand, passed out the window like a ritual. "Everything okay?" he asked, not looking at her yet. Her voice didn't shift. Still calm. "Five's vehicle matches the description involved in a recent incident. We need to verify your ID and ownership." He turned now, slowly. She was early auburn hair, athletic frame. Her uniform was immaculate, her face unreadable. Name tag Carlisle. Jack's face didn't twitch, but something behind his eyes changed. "Stolen car?" he asked flatly. "I can't say." "All right. Procedure." She didn't rise to the tone. "Where are you coming from tonight?" Jack gestured with his chin toward his own chest. "Shim. Where to?" "Tight home." She nodded. "Look down at the registration." "Step out of the vehicle, sir." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Am I being detained?" She kept her tone level. "Not yet." That yet wasn't a threat, but it was a promise. Jack looked forward again, then down at his grip on the steering wheel. She waited, and he said nothing. The moment stretched, no sound but the wind brushing dry branches overhead and the low hum of both engines. Jack's voice finally broke the silence. Soft, sharp. "You're not really here about a car, are you?" Carlisle's stance didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. "And I'm following up on a match from dispatch." Black Charger. Probably 100 of them in this county, which is why we're verifying. "And if I say no?" She didn't blink. "Well, then I'll call for backup and proceed with detainment under reasonable suspicion." Jack looked back at her. Long, hard. Then he said very softly, "Oldham." Carlisle didn't hesitate. She touched her shoulder mic. "A unit requesting backup. Vehicle match. Non-compliant driver." Her voice was flat. Professional. Jack rolled the window the rest of the way down. The air hit him like ice. He turned to her and said, "You want me out of the car?" Carlisle watched him. 1 second. 2. Jack tilted his head slightly. "Earn it." She stood close, almost too close. Her hand hovered at her hip, fingers grazing the cool edge of her cuffs. But for a second, they didn't move. They just lingered there, like she was thinking about something else entirely. Carlisle's eyes locked onto him. Jack. He'd just stepped out of the vehicle, unfolding to his full height like a steel door swinging open. Broad, calm, still radiating heat from whatever weights he'd been throwing around an hour ago. He wasn't afraid. She didn't want him to be. "I need you to turn around. Hands behind your back," she said, flat, official. But her voice had thinned, just slightly, not a tremble, a shift. He didn't move. She reached out, hands sliding along the edge of his forearm. The hoodie didn't hide the heat of his skin, or the dry scrape of his pulse beneath it. For a second, her fingers rested there, too long to be procedural. Still, he didn't resist, just watched her. Quiet, sharp. She gave a little push, turned him with more firmness than necessary. He let her. His shoulder brushed against her chest. Their breath collided for half a heartbeat. Carlisle swallowed hard. The cuffs were in her hand now, the steel suddenly heavier than she remembered. She wrapped them around one wrist. Cold, tight. "Are you always this gentle?" he murmured, low, mocking, but not cruel. "Or is this just for me?" She didn't answer. He turned his head just enough to catch her expression, and then, softly, with a trace of amusement, he added, "Careful. You'll get used to touching me." Click. The second cuff snapped closed. Carlisle took a sharp step back. The spell broke, but in the space between them, something stayed. They walked him toward the second cruiser, her hand on his bicep, firm but not rough. His body moved with a strange grace despite the restraint, like a man accustomed to carrying weight even when he wasn't in the gym. Jack didn't speak, but he didn't go limp either. His posture was too composed, too intact. Carlisle opened the cruiser door, paused, and turned him sideways. "I need to pat you down before placing you inside." His eyes met hers, just long enough to make her forget which protocol came next. "You're welcome to search," he said softly, "but I don't usually like it when someone does it without eye contact." Her jaw set. "Turn around." He did, slowly. She started at the collar, ran her hands down his back, deliberate, methodical, but not unaffected. Beneath the layers of fabric his body was dense, not bulky, sculpted. She could feel the tension coiled under his skin like a drawn bowstring. It wasn't just muscle, it was self-control. She moved to his waist. Pockets. Her hand brushed the inner seam of his hoodie. She froze. Something soft, small, square. She pulled it out. Clear plastic, white powder inside. Everything in her stomach dropped half an inch. "What's this?" she asked, voice cooler now. Jack turned his head slightly. His smile was crooked. "Creatine, recovery formula." She didn't move. "Take a taste," he said. "If it's anything else, I'll take the ride quietly." Carlyle stared at the packet in her hand, suddenly aware of how her fingers trembled ever so slightly. Behind her, Hughes stepped closer. "Why good?" Carlyle didn't answer, not right away. She sealed the bag and dropped it into her pouch like it burned. "Yeah," she muttered. "We're good." But she wasn't sure anymore what good even meant. The second cruiser pulled up fast, tires whispering against the shoulder gravel. Its headlights didn't dim. They pinned Jack's car like a target under interrogation. Jack didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He could feel the air shift, denser, colder, power arriving. From the second vehicle emerged a man, taller, bulkier, older. His movements weren't slow, but they weren't thoughtful either. Just a rhythm of confidence and wear. He approached from the passenger side, stopping near Carlyle without a word. Jack could hear their murmurs through the cracked window. She was briefing him. He didn't catch every word, but the tone told enough. He's difficult. He knows his rights. "Don't escalate unless we have to." Carlyle returned to the window. "Sir, last warning. Step out." Jack didn't move. "On what charge?" "Suspicion of a matching vehicle, uncooperative behavior, evading search." He chuckled once. "You want me to step out so you can check a box?" She didn't answer that. "Tell you what," Jack said, voice low and sharp. "If I step out now, I give you permission to write me as a threat. A risk. The guy who made you nervous." "You're already writing yourself that way," she replied. Jack smiled without teeth. Let's finish the story." And he opened the door. He stepped out slowly, fully upright, hands visible, calm, silent. The taller officer moved behind him. "Hands behind your back." Jack didn't flinch. He complied. But as the cuffs clicked tight around his wrists, he turned his head slightly toward Carlyle and said, Let's see how deep this mistake goes." They led him toward the second cruiser, one officer on each side. He walked without resistance, head high, expression blank. Inside, though, something was winding tight, like a spring locked too long. His breath was steady, but his fingers twitched slightly inside the cuffs. He watched the shadows on the pavement as they walked. The headlights behind them cast long versions of themselves on the ground. Then he stopped walking. Just stopped. "Keep moving," Hughes said, nudging him forward. Jack didn't. And then he ran. He pivoted on one foot, bent low, and launched himself into the dark. It was wild, fast, awkward, not freedom, just momentum. The cuffs threw off his balance. His arms couldn't move. His legs pounded the pavement. Behind him, shouts, a grunt, the scuff of boots. Adrenaline tore through him like fire. He didn't care if they caught him. This wasn't about escape. This was about not giving them everything. Even for 10 seconds, even for 5, he hit the end of the street, turned sharply into an alley. Then tackle. The air shot from his lungs as a body hit his back, hard. The asphalt kissed his face, split his cheek. His shoulder ground into the concrete. He didn't scream. A knee pressed into his spine. Hands grabbed his arms. Not gently. He didn't resist, but in his mind he wasn't there. He was somewhere else, earlier versions of this moment. Different streets, different faces, same story. "Encore, que good?" Carlyle's voice rang out, panting slightly as she approached. Hughes nodded, holding Jack down with one knee. "Yeah, he's done." Jack lay flat, face bleeding, mouth closed tight. Carlyle crouched near his side. She began the search, methodical. Beltline, pockets, sleeves. She reached into the inside pocket of his hoodie and paused. Her fingers found something soft, square, sealed. She pulled it out slowly, a small, clear plastic packet, filled with white powder. She froze, held it between 2 fingers, looked at Hughes, then down at Jack. "What is this?" Jack didn't lift his head. His cheek was pressed into the pavement, blood trickled from his lip, but his voice was clear. "And creatine monohydrate." She stared at the bag. "You want a scoop? Go lift something." No one laughed. Hughes looked at her. "We booking him?" She didn't answer right away. Jack closed his eyes, then opened them again. "Congratulations," he muttered. "You found my post-workout." Carlyle looked at the packet one more time, then sealed it in a bag. The evidence label she wrote on top felt heavier than it should. The cell was concrete, colorless, and colder than it needed to be. Jack sat on the bench with his arms crossed, blood dried on his lip, wrists burning beneath the chafed ridges of recently removed cuffs. The steel toilet in the corner made no sound. The walls didn't echo, just swallowed everything, like the room itself had learned to keep secrets. No clock, no sound but the occasional buzz of fluorescent light overhead. That persistent, maddening hum. He looked up at the mirrored glass on the wall. He'd been in cells before. He knew someone might be watching, or no one at all. That was part of the game. Let a man talk to himself long enough, and he'll say something useful. But Jack wasn't talking. He was remembering. Stop, rain, spring, pulled over for failing to signal. He'd used the signal. He always used the signal. They said he looked tense. Searched the car, found a protein bar and an unopened supplement container. Held it like it was evidence. Let him go. Stop. Summer. Broad daylight. A match to a suspicious person. Description. Said his vehicle and circulated near a robbery scene. That one took 2 hours to clear. No charges. Just time lost. And now here. He leaned back against the wall, closed his eyes. It wasn't the cuffs that hurt. Not the knee in the back. Not the tackle. It was the quiet. It was knowing that at every stop, every interaction, every moment where his life narrowed to the lens of a flashlight and the sharp voice of authority, he was always assumed first, always judged first, always reacting. The door didn't open. No voices. Just the waiting. He whispered aloud, voice soft and low. You're not protecting the public from me. You're protecting yourselves from what you don't want to understand. Elsewhere in the precinct, Dana Carlisle sat at a plastic desk under buzzing lights, a thin paper envelope in front of her. She stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Her fingers didn't shake, but her thoughts did. The document inside was simple, standard. Field substance test, packet labeled evidence result, negative for controlled substances, contents identified, creatine monohydrate legal supplement. She read it again, and again. Then she sat back in her chair, staring at nothing. Hughes walked by. That from the lab? She didn't look up, just nodded. What was it? And creatine. He didn't react, just rubbed his jaw, and knew it smelled like GNC. Then why didn't you say anything? Wasn't my call. She didn't respond. He walked off. She stayed seated, the report on the table in front of her. Still, silent. For the first time in a long time, Dana Carlisle didn't feel sure. The cell door buzzed. Jack didn't move. A young officer entered. Not Hughes, not Carlisle. He held the paperwork like a shield. You're free to go. Jack stayed seated. No reaction. The officer cleared his throat. And no charges. You can collect your personal effects at the front desk. Still no movement. Sir, Jack finally stood. He looked at the kid, barely old enough to shave, and said, That's it? The officer blinked. Sir, no charges. No paperwork explaining it. No note in my file saying this was bullshit from the jump, and just here to Pat, yeah. You're just here to process, not to think. He walked past the officer slowly, his shoulders tight, head high. At the front desk, they handed him a plastic tray with his phone, his keys, and a bag containing the packet. It was still labeled, evidence. He held it up. Are you keeping this as a trophy, or should I take it back to the gym? The woman behind the glass didn't respond. Jack walked out through the double doors. The sky was just starting to gray with morning. He didn't go to his car right away. He stood on the sidewalk outside the station. For a long time. People passed. No one looked. He said under his breath, You didn't let me go. You just stopped pretending I was guilty. David Muncie's office didn't look like much. Old brick building. Second floor. No name on the glass, just a metal plaque that said Muncie Law, and a dented coat rack in the corner that didn't stand straight. Jack sat on the edge of a cracked leather chair, arms folded, his gaze fixed on the window behind David's head. He hadn't spoken much since walking in. David didn't rush him. He had the kind of face that said he'd seen every type of mess a man could walk in with, and some that walked in pretending they didn't have one. Eventually, Jack said, but never said sorry. David sipped his coffee. It smelled burnt, but never do. They found creatine. That's it. That's all it was. And for that I got tackled, cuffed, and locked in a box for 12 hours. David leaned back, eyes half-lidded. Were you a dick to them? Jack looked at him. I didn't lick their boots. If that's what you mean. David shrugged. It's a system. You resist, it flexes, and it doesn't care if you're right. Jack didn't answer. His jaw tensed. David finally leaned forward, tapped a notepad once. You want to sue? So want to be the last guy they do this to. David raised an eyebrow. You think the courts are where that kind of justice happens? Oh no, Jack said. But I think a courtroom's the one place where they can't mute the audio. David chuckled. Just once. Oh, you're gonna be fun. The story hit local news 2 days after the lawsuit was filed. Wrongful detainment suit filed against police. Supplement mistaken for drugs. It wasn't explosive. Just enough to spark online comment wars. Some called him brave. Others called him dramatic. Some said he had it coming. Jack didn't read the comments, but his job did. HR called him in. Polite voices. Concerned questions. Is there anything we should be aware of before this becomes more public? Jack said no. They paused. Would you be comfortable taking some personal time? He didn't answer. He just handed in his badge to the building's security scanner and walked out without looking back. That night, at the gym, people stared more. One guy asked, "That you in the article?" Jack didn't answer. He added 20 pounds to the barbell and started his next set. 2 weeks later, David called. You're going to want to see this. Jack met him in the office. Same chair, same window. David had the playback already cued. Security footage from a gas station. A black Dodge Charger rolls up to pump 6. 2 men get out. One of them wears a hood. The other keeps looking over his shoulder. The license plate is blurred, but the timestamp places it during a robbery 5 miles away. You seeing what I'm seeing? David asked. Same make. Same model. Different man. Jack stared at the footage. Didn't blink. David nodded. But this is what we needed. No, Jack said. This is what we always had. The courtroom was quiet. Not reverent, just restrained. The kind of silence that knows something could explode at any second. Jack sat at the plaintiff's table beside David, dressed in the same charcoal blazer he wore to job interviews and funerals. His face was clean-shaven. His hands stayed folded, unmoving, but his eyes, they never rested. Across the room sat Dana Carlisle. Her uniform was crisp, her hair pulled tight, her face pale. The judge entered. Wood scraped as everyone stood, then sat again. David stood first, calm, steady. And my client, Jack Brenner, was detained without cause, tackled, injured, and humiliated because a legal supplement was mistaken for contraband. But this case is not about creatine. It's about assumptions. He sat. Jack felt the eyes of the courtroom on him. Not sympathy, not contempt, curiosity, like they couldn't decide if he was the villain or the victim. He preferred it that way. He was neither. The video played. Bodycam footage filled the projection screen, grainy but real. Jack's voice echoed through the speakers. You want me out? Earn it. The courtroom held its breath. They saw Dana's face tighten, heard her voice crack slightly as she called for backup, watched Jack exit the car with slow, deliberate steps. Then the sprint, the tackle, the bag, the plastic evidence pouch holding what every lifter in the country could buy for $20 at the supplement store. Then the silence in the holding cell, the closing door. Jack didn't react as the footage ended. David stood again. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this was not procedure, this was performance. And my client paid for it, with his body, with his name, with his peace. The jury left to deliberate. It didn't take long. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous, in favor of Jack Brenner. Damages awarded. No criminal record. An official note of fault filed against the department. Dana Carlisle didn't look up. Jack didn't look at her. Not because he was trying to spare her, because she didn't matter anymore. The podcast was recorded 2 weeks later. A long-form sit-down interview. Minimal editing. One camera. A neutral backdrop. No handlers. The host sat across from Jack, mic clipped to his collar. Why come on the show? She asked. Jack didn't smile. And you have listeners. And do you hate the police? Oh, no. Do you hate Dana Carlisle? No. Then what do you hate? He looked straight into the lens. I hate what they made me become. A beat. I hate that I ran. I hate that I expected them to hurt me. I hate that I was right. The host let the silence sit. And now? Jack leaned forward, voice low. Now I keep the lights on, so they don't get to do it in the dark again. The audio faded out. The video ended. The camera lingered on Jack's face just 1 second longer than necessary. Then the screen went black.